So we have not exactly a full week since the last This Week in Baseball, thanks to some technical difficulties we had last week with my internet going down as we tried to record. Things got all sorts of wonky. We're finally on the schedule that we had planned, where Thursday is This Week in Baseball. Monday is going to be the main topic. So we are here to talk about the happenings from basically Monday to now, which doesn't seem like it would be all that much, but it's a lot. So first and foremost, the Hall of Fame votes were was announced on Tuesday, and we have not one, not two, but three guys going into the Hall along with Jim Leland here in July, I believe, when it should be like the second week of July is going to be induction weekend. So we wanted to spend some time talking about those guys and a couple of other key guys on the ballot, giving them some love because we haven't actually done that yet. So first and foremost, Adrian Beltre got into the Hall of Fame with 99% of the votes.
95, right?
Was it 95?
I think so.
Oh, it was 99 the last time I checked, and then I didn't look at the number after the rest of it went. So 95% of the vote. Still, that is ridiculously insane. That is a large number. First ballot Hall of Famer. I don't think anyone thought that he would be even close to the 75%. I think they all knew he was going to be well above 90. Does that seem fair?
Dude. Adrian Beltre is amazing. I'm just looking at his baseball reference page right now, and it's like just mind-boggling that he was able to do this for 21 seasons. And like, what did the guy not do well? You know, he hit for power. He played a lot. He played fantastic third base defense. Lots of doubles.
A really solid average.
Like, there's nothing the guy did not do well on a baseball field. And the crazy thing that stands out to me is that he probably was super underappreciated in the first half of his career, like completely. Guy didn't make an all-star team until he was 31. That just kind of shows you like that the position was a little bit stacked at the time that he played. And then in the back half of his career, especially with Texas, that's when it feels like he truly made a name for himself and became like the extremely well liked, and you know, he had a lot of personality too, right? Like that was part of his whole thing. Like he was a great player, plus he was a guy that was really easy to root for and extremely fun to watch in general.
Yeah, like you could tell that every other player in baseball, his team, other team, didn't matter, liked him. You could tell, like, even though you didn't necessarily hear him speak, you just saw him play. The way people would mess with him, they would just kind of
touch his head. Do not touch his head. Yeah,
do not touch that man's head. Oh my God. Did not go well for Elvis Andrus. But you could just tell how genuine of a man and how nice of a man he is, and everyone loved him on the field. Off the field in LA and Seattle, he was just not really appreciated. He was a contemporary with David Wright. He was a contemporary with Scott Rowland. He was a contemporary with A-Rod, at third base. Who else was there at third base in the National League specifically is kind of what I'm trying to think.
I'm thinking of like Chipper.
Yep, that's a good one. I can't believe I forgot Chipper. Shoot, the Cubs. Aramis Ramirez. Like,
I don't know if he was ever in the same caliber though.
Well, he wasn't, but he was a more talked about guy at the time.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's kind of my point, is like all these other guys got talked about. Beltre did not. But Beltre had 48 home runs in 2004 at the age of 25 for the Dodgers. This is a guy that took 10 hit by pitches in 2006 for the Mariners. Like, he had 49 doubles in a season for Boston. Like, these are all things that you don't remember that he did. He didn't have a Gold Glove until 2007, and he's always been one of the best defensive third basemen. Like, he didn't get any love at all. He did get second in the MVP in 2004, his 48 homer season, and a Silver Slugger, but no other awards from the age of 19 to 28. But then all of a sudden, he goes to Texas, ninth in the MVP voting, All-Star, Silver Slugger, All-Star, Gold Glove, Silver Slugger, 15th in the MVP, All-Star, third in the MVP, Gold Glove, 7th in the MVP, All-Star, 15th MVP, Silver Slugger, 7th MVP, Gold Glove, 7th MVP. Like, now all of a sudden, the back half of his career, you start seeing all these awards and award shares popping up, and that's not normal.
Yeah,
That's in your
this
post
is not like
prime.
a. I was gonna try to make the case that he might have been more appreciated in the age of analytics, like now, but now I'm kind of looking back at the front half of the career, and there were like some years that he was below average by OPS. Like he truly like had a reverse aging curve where he got better as he aged,
He
which is
he
like
he
freakish.
Nelson cruised it, but he started at 19.
Yeah, yeah. And
So
Nelson Cruz like didn't have the he didn't even become a full-time player until he was older, so he didn't have time to put up the same type of numbers that Beltre did because Beltre was at least, posting the gaudy games played totals. He had 10 years where he played 150 games plus in a season. Like he was healthy and he posted
yeah,
and he was awesome.
he's also one of the guys that hit the big milestones. 3,000 hits, and actually he had 3,000 hits in 2017, and then he still played 2018. He finished his career with 3166. He had almost 500 home runs. He had 1,700 RBIs. He had 97 hit by pitches in his career, which I think he's one of the top like hit by pitch guys of all time, isn't he?
It doesn't look like he gets hit that much per year, like less than 10 in a year.
Well, no, but career wise, I believe he's one of the highest. Hold on, let me.
Really?
Yeah, I gotta find it down in the bottom. MVP weekly slugging at bats, guys, singles. Where's hit by pitches? I know it's in
He's
here.
107th all time with 97 hit by pitchers. He's
Who
nowhere close to the top.
Shoot, who was I
Chase Utley.
thinking?
Chase
Utley's
Utley.
the one I was thinking of. Okay, I
Yeah.
knew it was someone on the Hall of Fame ballot. Okay,
Mhm.
that's on
Yeah.
me. I apologize for that. I knew it was someone. But anyway, Beltre had the big numbers, the big round numbers that everyone likes. He was universally liked. He played forever and he never put up a bad season. He had not great seasons early in his career, but it wasn't bad. His defense was always stellar. And this dude is hands down one of the easiest Hall of Fame candidates ever. I think. Like, there was no but.
There's no case against him,
Yeah,
right? Like,
there's no case against him.
yeah.
So time to give the next guy some love. And this next guy has been on the ballot now for 6 years. And he did not get anywhere near the love that he deserved until finally he squeaked by the 75% mark this year. And that's Todd Helton. Todd Helton was one of the most dominant players of the 2000s. Like, he had those all-star Silver Sluggers, Gold Gloves for years at the front half of his career. But then you look at the back half of his career, and he's still consistently having like 300 averages, 325 averages. He had a couple of seasons where he was hurt, didn't play all that great, like 2012 at 38 years old, 69 games, 238 batting average, OPS plus under 100. But he was like consistently 140 OPS plus and higher for the first half of his career. He was the heart and soul of the Rockies. And that's where people kept dinging him, was
I was gonna say,
for the
like,
Rockies.
I don't want to be that guy, and I absolutely would have voted for Todd Helton if I had a Hall of Fame vote. But you can't have the Todd Helton conversation without talking about the ballpark that he played his entire career in, and he also played there in Colorado at the time when, yes.
I would like to point out OPS plus is normalized across all ballparks, as is
Yeah.
WRC plus. So people should go look at those for Todd Helton. They're big numbers.
It's true. It's absolutely true. But yeah, I mean, like home numbers in his career, 345 batting average with a 607 slugging percentage. 600. That is unreal. The road numbers are also really, really good. They're Hall of Fame worthy on their own. So that's like a big plus point for Todd Helton.
Yeah.
287 batting average with the 469 slugging percentage. Like he was no slouch on the road. But I do think that in terms of like the counting numbers, his his numbers are probably inflated in a big way because of Coors Field. Like he had 1,000 OPSs in seasons, many seasons, which is not something that happens like anywhere else except like once in a while. So like
When was the humidor introduced in Course?
it was definitely after the early 2000s because like the right around the turn of the century in like 2000, 2001, those were like the biggest like years for hitting at Coors Field when they had like Ellis Burks and Larry Walker. Like those Rockies teams just absolutely mashed. And I'm not saying that they weren't good, but ballpark helped them do what they did.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to find where it or when they finally got the humidor. It was after 2004. I know that,
Okay. Yeah, that sounds about right.
but I don't remember exactly where or when it was. But it was sometime after 2004. And all of Todd Helton's like massive OPS numbers were 2004 and prior. So yeah, that is a big thing there. But and so I think that's maybe why he got in now is because we're past the point of to get into the Hall of Fame you have to either reach 500 home runs or 3,000 hits or whatever. And so the argument that well his counting numbers are inflated because of Coors, but it doesn't matter. Go look at it just like what he meant to the game. Go look at what he was able to do outside of Coors and his numbers there. And how do those compare to other Hall of Famers? And yeah, he's benefiting from Coors, but like he's equally as good outside. So like he finally got the love because of the way that people have changed the way that they vote. Even though his numbers at face value, hands down Hall of Famer, probably should have been a first ballot. Your second dive is where you say, maybe not. Your third dive is when you go, oh, yeah, I was right the first time. And there's a lot of guys that are like that. But this next guy is maybe not that to a lot of people. To me, I think to you, it was kind of a no doubt guy in Joe Mauer. And Joe Mauer, there's a lot of reasons that people said, no, he shouldn't be a Hall of Famer, period, let alone a first ballot. He only played for 15 years and was only a primary catcher for 10 of them. Like, then he was a first baseman, and he doesn't have the first baseman numbers to get in. And then they look at all of his hitting stats, and then they compare it to other guys who maybe missed the Hall of Fame at different positions, and they say, well, he didn't get in, so why should Mauer get in? It's like, well, go look at the 10 years Mauer was a primary catcher. And when I say primary catcher, I mean pretty much every single day for 10 years. Like, the dude barely missed a game behind the plate. In that time, he won an MVP. He was fourth in the MVP the year before that. He was sixth in the MVP in his third year in the league. He made 6 All-Star games. He won 3 Gold Gloves, 4 Silver Sluggers. Like, he put up some ridiculous batting averages for people, not for catchers, for people.
Yeah, this guy was not just a good hitting catcher, right? He was like a good hitter, MVP caliber type guy, and that's not something you see from the catcher position very
Yeah,
often.
you
And it was
you
like he won 3 batting titles. To me, that's like one of the biggest accolades that he has on his ledger. Obviously, he's got all the other stuff too, but 3 different years, he was the guy that had the most, you know, best batting average in the league. That's
yeah.
remarkable for a catcher because we see catchers today and they're the guys that are almost always the worst hitter on the team. They're have low batting averages. They're like they all follow a similar archetype. Joe Mauer was
Well,
not that guy.
the closest guy we have to a Joe Mauer right now is JT Realmuto. Like, you hear how much people talk about how good of a hitter JT is for a catcher, and JT is a really good hitter, but he's not Joe Mauer at all.
No, no.
Joe Mauer, as far as a hitter is concerned, reminds me a lot more of your Gary Carters, your Mike Schmidts, your kind of those guys. Mike Schmidt wasn't a catcher; he was third base. But
Gary
you
Carter
get my
was
point.
not a good hitter though.
I thought Gary Carter was only a hit. I thought he sucked at catching.
I thought he was a
Is
great.
it the other way
catcher,
around?
Yeah.
Oh, this is awkward.
I thought the guy couldn't hit, but I'll fact check that. At some point.
If he couldn't hit, then Yachty is definitely a Hall of Famer. But that's the other argument, though, is like Buster Posey, Yachty or Molina, and Joe Mauer all frequently get thrown into the same argument, and it's like, well, is this one a Hall of Famer? If not,
I don't know. Like,
and those guys
should not be compared, right?
They should not be. All 3 of those guys have entirely different careers that should all be looked separately, because the way that voting is going now, like I said, is a lot of what did they mean to the game? How good was their peak? Like, you're looking at counting stats too, but like with Posey and with Mauer, like the length of time that they were a primary catcher, not really all that long, but the dominance when they were there is pretty obvious. Yachty had longevity, and that's a lot of his thing, and his defensive prowess. So like they're not the same arguments at all. Buster Posey was not nearly the hitter that Mauer was, but his impact to that team.
I don't know about that, right? Like I feel like Mauer and Posey are similar. They're
similar, but Posey wasn't putting up 365 batting averages over the course of a full season.
That's true, but like, he had more power, right?
Yeah,
he did it in a little bit of a different way.
Yeah, like Mauer only finished his career with 143 home runs, and let's see, 38 of those came after he was no longer a catcher. So,
yeah, I don't know. Like, I think Buster Posey's a clear Hall of Famer, and
I think I think all 3 of those guys to me were clear Hall of Famers.
Yeah, but I think the Yachty case is not related to these 2 at all.
No, it's not. But my point being that while 2 of them are similar in Posey and Mauer, they're still very, very different cases. And I think all 3 of them have way more fors than against, because Mauer, on top of being a good hitter, was a fantastic defensive catcher, as was Posey, as was Yachty. Like, that's the one thing they all have in common. It's the other part that differs, but like what Mauer meant to the team, he was the face of the franchise. He was the guy that kept carrying them at least to the playoff or to the postseason. They didn't manage to win because they faced the Yankees every single time that he made it to the postseason. They had, I think, 1 win while he was there. Not one series win, 1 win in the postseason while he was there. But what he did in the regular season and the way that he was that team, like there's a lot of intangibles for him on top of the gaudy hitting numbers, on top of the defense, that I think makes his case pretty slam dunk, even with the short time span, the not big counting stats. Like,
yeah, no, I think with the longevity thing, for me, it doesn't matter as much, especially for a player like Mauer, who was clearly hampered by injuries. That's the reason he retired at the end. So, like,
well, and it's the reason he stopped catching. Like,
yeah, it's the reason he stopped catching, and it's also the reason he retired. and he was very young, and like it's too bad we didn't get to see more years of Joe Mauer because he was awesome, and it just the stipulation is that you play 10 years, so we shouldn't be unfairly dinging guys for not playing 25 years or whatever, you know?
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, those three are all inducted into the Hall of Fame. Like, no matter what we say here, 75% of is basically 300 people in the Baseball Writers Association of America all said yes. That guy's career was worthy of being counted in the top 1% of all baseball players ever. He will be enshrined, and there's no changing that. Like, he's in. And so any of the arguments against are moot. Like, but there's a couple guys who did not get in that I still want to talk about. One of them we'll talk about very briefly because I have a feeling we'll be talking about him in length for getting in next year. That is left-handed relief pitcher / closer, Billy Wagner. He fell just short. He was, I think, like 71-ish% this year. It's the closest he's ever gotten. Next year is his 10th and final year on the ballot. I have a feeling he will get that last 4%. You very rarely get to 70.
It was even higher than that. He was like 4 or 5 votes short, actually.
Oh, yeah, because he was 5 votes short, and Mauer made it by 4 votes, I think is what it was. So, yeah.
He's pretty much going to be getting in, and I guess that one's just a case of whether you think relief pitchers belong in the Hall of Fame or not, because he represents like one of the best relievers of all time. That's his main case for making the Hall of Fame.
The thing people ding him for is not having the ridiculously high save totals of Trevor Hoffman. Exactly. That's not the role that he was given for most of his career. He was one of the best relief pitchers in any role, period. And then he still had 400 and whatever saves. And he's a lefty. Like, everyone else that's in there is a righty.
And he was better than Trevor Hoffman, so there's that too.
So it's like, he deserves to be in. The people that say that he doesn't, just don't be the guy that keeps him out. Like, that's what John Heyman actually put out an article today. He's like, I don't really want to vote for him, but I also don't want to be the one guy that keeps him out. And it's like, that
sounds
might
like
be
a John Heyman thing to say.
It very much is. But I mean, I get it too. Like, some guy wanted to be the one guy to make Jeter not a unanimous, but nobody wants to be the one guy that doesn't get one of the best left-handed relief pitchers of all time in. So whatever. But the last guy that I actually did want to talk about a little bit more at length is Gary Sheffield, because Gary Sheffield is interesting. He just fell off the ballot after 10 years. He had 66%, I think, of the ballots this year. Like, he made some pretty good progress. He was never suspended for PEDs. He was suspected at one point, but like not in the same way as Bonds McGuire. He was more in the Big Papi thing. Where his name,
I don't even think he was named on a report like Big Papi.
I don't think he was named in a report. I think he was rumored in something. But Gary Sheffield was one of the most feared right-handed hitters of the basically of the 90s and 2000s. He played from 88 to all the way to 2009. But he played for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different clubs. And that's kind of the thing that I think a lot of people were dinging him for, is that he never really settled down and was the face of a franchise and did all this stuff. But he had a 140 career OPS plus. He had a 292, 393, 514 career triple slash. He had 500 home runs. He didn't have 3,000 hits, but he wasn't that far off. He was at about 2,700. Like, he had really good counting stats. He played for a long time. He was one of the most feared hitters of all time. but he couldn't quite get in. He also had 60.5 WAR over the course of his career. Like this man, and 253 stolen bases, so he wasn't slow either. Like Gary Sheffield, in my opinion, had a really good case. And someone pointed this out to me the other day. I can't remember where the article was, but I read this somewhere. They basically said Gary Sheffield is basically a better version of Fred McGriff. They were both guys who played all over the league. They didn't really play in one spot for all that long. Some people thought they were kind of not great teammates. Like they weren't bad people. They were just kind of hard to get along with. But they were amazing hitters. They were hitters for hire, and they both had these big numbers, 500 home runs and whatever. But Sheffield was better. Fred McGriff just got in last year through the era committees. And so I do fully believe Gary Sheffield will be in the Hall of Fame. I think he's just going to have to get in through the era committee like Fred McGriff did.
Yeah. So I guess I don't really have anything extra to add on Sheffield. Just to comment on that last thing you were saying about their personalities. And I just hate that that's a part of the calculus here. Like, it shouldn't matter if Gary Sheffield was like not a nice person. Who cares? Like that's not what the Hall of Fame is for.
But that's not even what they're saying.
Voted.
They're saying that he was just hard to get along with, not that he was a bad person. Like it doesn't fall under the character clause. That's not what people say about him.
It's not the character clause, but it's also surely playing into the voting, right? Like
yeah, was he nice to all the reporters? If he wasn't really nice to a certain reporter, maybe they don't vote for him because of that. Like it's personal grudges is what it is, which is why he will be in. He's just not getting in because of the reporters.
Yeah, that's a good comp on Fred McGriff because he was better than Fred McGriff, and I thought Fred McGriff should have been in the Hall of Fame. So for me, it's clear.
Yeah, so it's pretty clear if you actually look at the numbers and what he did for baseball that he deserves to be in. So, I think you had one more guy that you wanted to talk about, and then we have a couple of transactions.
Yeah. Don't want to go super into depth on it, but I think Carlos Beltran is kind of tracking towards making the Hall of Fame in a few years because he's cleared some thresholds in his first 2 years on the ballot that based on history, he's going to get in at some point. It's just kind of a matter of time.
Yeah. If you reach 60% and have at least 3 years left, you're pretty much guaranteed to get in. He's at 60% through 2 years. The first year, people didn't know what to think because of the sign stealing scandal. Yeah. And he was punished. He lost his job as a manager because of it. There was some things that like he was punished for that already. And so now I think people have gone, okay, it didn't change how he played throughout the course of his career, except for maybe a little bit that one season. But like his ridiculous numbers are ridiculous no matter what. And he wasn't doing that his whole career. He was already punished. Are we going to double punish him? And it seems like now people are saying no. It's like he took his slap on the wrist. We'll put him in.
People not voting for him in year one was almost their way of punishing him?
Yes.
Yeah. So
because he is one of those guys.
They're over that. It's like from an on-field standpoint and his career from a baseball standpoint, minus the scandal, right? Like he's a clear Hall of Famer. He's like one of the best center fielders.
My question to you, if that scandal did not happen or he wasn't a part of it, let's just say that he wasn't a part of it, it could have still happened, didn't matter. Would we not be talking about him exactly the same way we talked about Beltre?
Yeah, I think he's way closer to that than being on the outside.
Well, like people loved him everywhere he played. He was one of the most feared hitters. He was a fantastic defender. Like he was a slam dunk first ballot Hall of Famer by his play. That one thing basically has him waiting 3 years now instead of being a first ballot. So like, I think that's their way of punishing him. And I think it's a little bit deserved. Like he'll still be in. It's fine. Like if they want to make him wait 2 years for that is like hey, we don't want people to cheat. Okay, whatever. Make an example out of him. You're not going to change anything, but whatever. You do you. So, all All right, cool. We will talk about next year's Hall of Fame next year. There's going to be some interesting names, Ichiro, CC Sabathia, but we're not going to talk about that yet. So we do have a couple of transactions that we need to talk about real quick before we head out, though. One, the Pittsburgh Pirates have brought in relief pitcher and closer and owner of the fastest pitch ever thrown, Aroldis Chapman, for 1 year, $10.5 million.
Yeah.
I know my thoughts. What are yours?
Well, I mean, we've seen this story play out before. It literally happened last year. He signed with the Royals for less money, 3 million, and he got traded at the trade deadline and went to a contending team. That was the Rangers. And the really interesting thing is the guy who he got traded for, Cole Reagans, who is looking kind of like a stud pitcher. So that's exactly what the Pirates are trying to do this year. They clearly don't need Aroldis Chapman. Like they just are planning to flip him at trade deadline and hope to strike it big. Like
It's the thing that is a little weird to me is how high they went. 10.5. Like it he took it because obviously he doesn't think he's gonna get 10.5 somewhere else to play for a full season. So he'll get traded to somewhere where he's gonna have a chance to win. While also making 10.5 mil.
He's literally their highest paid player.
Yeah, it feels like if they could have got that deal for like 5 or 6, like it would make a lot of sense. Like you'll actually get something back in value if he's good. But at 10.5, it's like you're gonna get something, but you're not gonna get a Cole Reagans.
Yeah, unless they pay down the salary or something.
Yeah. So, which they very well could do. Okay. Joseph Gallo has signed to a team. I think he thinks that my Shark Tank idea is going into effect. He signed with the Washington Nationals for 1 year for $5 million as another, can he kind of prove that he is an everyday player type of thing.
We literally saw this play out exactly like this with the exact same team last year. Jamer Candelario signed a 1 year deal for $5 million. So the Nats are going to try it again because the Nats were able to flip him at the trade deadline to the Cubs and got a couple of prospects out of it. So, I mean, I don't know if Joey Gallo is bringing back like prospects of any value, but it's like, why not take the chance on that he actually like becomes good Joey Gallo again?
Yeah. I mean, dude still got a ridiculous amount of power and still really good defensively. Yeah. So there's no reason not to for $5 million. James Paxton, Los Angeles Dodgers, 1 year, $11 million. Big Maple.
Big Maple is a big Dodger now. So Dodgers are just doing this thing with pitching where they don't care if their pitchers are injured all the time. They don't care if like they're just generally unavailable. Like last year, their innings pitched leader was Clayton Kershaw, and he threw like 130 innings.
Yeah.
And basically all the guys behind him in the starting rotation were like had super low innings totals. We talked about the Giants being a team that basically was limping their way through the season with like 2 starters. The Dodgers did the same thing quietly. They just did it in a way more effective way because they got such better quality out of the innings they got from their starters, and they want to kind of do that with Paxton, who always gets hurt, but when he actually pitches, he's good.
So the difference between what the Dodgers did and what the Giants did, though, is that the Dodgers had a lot of depth, and they were using their depth to get quality starts from people, just not getting a ton from the same 5 guys. The Giants didn't have any depth. They were going to the bullpen 3 days a week,
and they didn't really have quality.
Yeah, so like they had there. Logan Webb.
Yeah,
and then they had nothing.
Right.
Like the Dodgers at least had quality. It just wasn't always the same guys.
And there's still more guys there for the Dodgers. When Paxton's not going to make 30 starts for the Dodgers. I can pretty much guarantee that. But they've got like Michael Grove, they've got Kyle Hurt, they've got Gavin Stone, they've got guys to
whip check,
take the additional starts and run with it. But I think Paxton, he showed last year he's still good. Like he's old, but he's still a really effective pitcher when he's on the mound.
Yeah. All right, so the last one, and I saved this for last because it's the most interesting to me. Rhys Hoskins landed a deal, 2 years, $34 million with an opt-out to the Milwaukee Brewers. So
yeah, I'm a little upset that he's going to one of the Cubs' prime rivals because he's a
same.
good player. Like the guy
Yes.
can
The-
hit.
So is it just me, or is this like the move that they've been trying to get a Hoskins quality player out of a Vogelbach, Rowdy Tellez salary and realized it's not going to happen? Like they finally have a guy that is what they want available. $17 million a year. That's not ridiculous. He's coming off an injury. So maybe he's not going to be the same, but like they're actually trying to get a good bat instead of an okay bat, could have a lot of power. Like they're actually just going and getting the good player finally, which is something they've needed to do for a long time. So it was relieving to me as a baseball fan to see them get Hoskins. It's like, oh my God, I like
That's
that
a good move. Yeah.
And then I immediately went to, I hate this. Why couldn't they have signed Rowdy back?
Yeah. I just look at the Brewers lineup right now, and they clearly need the help. They've got the potential to actually be very good, but they're banking on really young and unproven players for a lot of spots. Like you're talking about Garrett Mitchell,
Bryce
Dallas
Terang.
Relic, Bryce Terang. I mean, Jackson Churio. Like they've got multiple spots in the lineup that are really unproven guys. And with Hoskins, like, yeah, he tore his ACL, but like I don't see how that's going to affect his hitting. The guy has always crushed. He's going to keep doing that. Like I have no doubt about it.
Yeah. So, all right, that is all we have for you guys tonight. Make sure to check out a new episode on Monday. That is going to be about all of the regional sports networks, Diamond Sports Group, and the Amazon situation. So make sure to check that out next week. We will be recording another couple episodes on Wednesday of next week as well, live on Twitch. Thank you very much, and we will see you guys next time.
If you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and YouTube to make sure you don't miss any future episodes. Join the conversation on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Getaway Day Pod. If you enjoy card collecting, check out our sister YouTube channel at Getaway Day Cards.